Hello and welcome. This is India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to get you all the stories that matter to the global Indian. But first up, the headlines. Bangladesh summons Indian envoy amidst protests that rocked both India and overseas due to the latest in the controversy regarding the ISKCON. Bangladesh court has meanwhile deferred the Hindu protest Chinmoy Das's bail hearing. Hindu priest Chinmoy Das's hearing to 2nd of January. Bangladesh has summoned the High Commissioner after the Agartala mission attack. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar makes big statement on the thaw between India and China. He says that full disengagement in eastern Ladakh. Dr. Jaishankar said that the next key priority will be de-escalation. President-elect Donald Trump says that all hell to pay after, in a final warning to Hamas. Hamas and Fatah, meanwhile, have discussed a possible governing arrangement for Gaza after the war. Nepal, China sign a 9-point pact during Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli's visit. Deal focuses on trade and connectivity and investment. Israel gets a warning on Lebanon ceasefire violations. If ceasefire fails, won't limit to strike Hezbollah, is the big warning from Tel Aviv. All right, the big story that we are tracking today is the latest that's coming in from Bangladesh, where the Indian envoy has been summoned. Ambassador Pranay Kumar Verma has been summoned to the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Dhaka in relation to the security breach that took place at the Assistant High Commission of Bangladesh in Tripura's Agartala. In the Tripura capital bordering Bangladesh, thousands of people took out a massive demonstration near Bangladesh's mission on Monday against the arrest of Hindu priest Chinmoy Krishna Brahmachari, as well as attacks on the Hindu community that are taking place in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, no relief for Hindu leader Chinmoy Krishna as his bail hearing in a Bangladesh court has now been postponed by a month due to the unavailability of any lawyer to represent him. And after an initial hearing on the bail petition, the judge has set 2nd of January now as the date for the next hearing. Meanwhile, numerous UK parliamentarians are now speaking out on the violence that's taking place on Bangladesh Hindus in the UK Parliament. Listen in to what Conservative Member of Parliament Preeti Patel had to say.
It's also raised the arrest of the ISKCON leader, and it's a place of worship I too am very familiar with near his constituency. But Mr. Speaker, these are deep and long-standing ties between our two countries, and the Minister herself is right to point out that even though she's visited Bangladesh recently, as my honourable friend, the member opposite, has said, the degree of escalation in the violence is deeply, deeply concerning. And what we are witnessing now is just uncontrolled violence in many quarters. And we are now watching with horror and shock as further violence is spread in Bangladesh. I must emphasise that all efforts must be taken now. We have a religious leader who has now been arrested. We need to know effectively what is being done to secure his release, due process in particular.
All right, those are very serious comments that have come in, and let me now also play out this conversation that my colleague Saurabh Gupta had with the ISKCON Kolkata Vice President Radha Raman Das on the latest that's unfolding in Bangladesh. Listen in.
It's unfortunate that Chinmoy Krishna Das Prabhu, who's been incarcerated in Bangladesh, is going to remain in jail because a lawyer could not turn up for him in court to defend him during his bail hearing. This is definitely a gap in the due process of law. The issue has reached the parliament in UK. In India, there are demands for a peacekeeping force from West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. But joining me now is Radha Raman Das, Vice President and spokesperson, ISKCON Kolkata. Sir, what happened? Why couldn't a lawyer reach court? Very strange. It's very strange.
The whole thing is very unfortunate. Unless a lawyer represent him in court, how we can expect somebody will get justice? We were expecting that. We were very hopeful. We were very hopeful that he will get justice today, and he will be granted bail. But forget about getting bail. Even his lawyers couldn't come to the court.
Is this because there is a sense of fear, targeting, persecution, that someone may turn up for him? Who knows? That person's safety will not be guaranteed?
Last time when Chinmoy Krishna Das was produced in court, then that time many lawyers who had appeared for him, I heard that false cases has been filed against them by police, and also many of them were assaulted. So we also saw that one public prosecutor who was there, he was killed that day. So situation in court, if is something like that, then who will dare to come and who will dare to appear for the for Chinmoy Krishna Das?
You were mentioning earlier about some calls you were receiving also from lawyers.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people they call and they tell about this situation. So the whole situation is very unfortunate. Second thing is that forget about lawyers. The two brahmacharis who used to go to jail to give prasad and medicine to Chinmoy Krishna Das. So they were also detained, and the police never told that on what charges they have been arrested.
All right, you heard that very important conversation where ISKCON is saying that no lawyer, no hope of right now getting interim relief, immediate relief, and most importantly, access is also now being limited. Let's now get in my colleague Saurabh Gupta joining me live from Kolkata, as well as Mohammad Ghazali from New Delhi, to really give us the sense of what's happening both on ground in Kolkata as well as the latest in terms of the diplomatic row. Saurabh, let me come to you first. We heard the conversation that you had with Radharaman Das a short while back. Clearly, as of now, as things stand right now, there is no legal recourse that the law of the land should provide any accused is being made available to Chinmoy Krishna Das right now. The fact that he doesn't even have a legal counsel right now, which the state ought to provide.
Absolutely, and this is something that perhaps even Preeti Patel, Member of Parliament, also highlighted, given the fact that she said due process, and due process is where anyone who's been accused of any crime, and these are accusations that have been dismissed by a large number of people, but anyways, they are accusations nevertheless, but he should have legal counsel. Now, one of the reasons that his lawyers apparently could not appear is because lawyers who appeared for him have been threatened, have been intimidated and have been assaulted. And that's something that ISKCON spokesperson and Vice President in Kolkata, Radharaman Das, said. So in that context, how will anyone appear in court? Also, these threats, these intimidations continuing, this is something that also means that given that his lawyer couldn't appear today, he remains in jail till the next hearing on the 2nd of January, which is something that voices from across the world have highlighted their concerns about. Now, also what we know is that this is an extremely difficult time for the minority community, the Hindu community in Bangladesh, something that again has been highlighted in protests. There have been protests that have taken place today as well in India, in places like Assam and in places like Kolkata as well. These protests continue because this is something that is an ongoing issue. And one of the things that perhaps also needs to be highlighted is what Radharaman Das said about the peacekeeping force, saying ISKCON itself had recommended it in 2021 when there were attacks on Durga Puja pandals at that time.
Indeed, peacekeeping force is a very strong step that is being spoken about and is being proposed by the Bengal Chief Minister. Saurabh, stay with us. I want to quickly get in my colleague Mohammad Ghazali as well. Ghazali, you're standing behind you is the Parliament, beautifully lit up. And one of the key issues that's now likely to be taken up in Parliament is what's happening in Bangladesh, even as on the table are very limited diplomatic options that New Delhi has right now.
Certainly, very limited diplomatic options, because even since August 5, since Sheikh Hasina was ousted and Mr. Muhammad Yunus took over as the interim in charge of the government there, the New Delhi has regularly been pressing Mr. Yunus and his government to ensure the safety of minorities, because since the build-up of this protest against Sheikh Hasina, the Indian government was in the know that it will eventually become an anti-India protest, or it will start targeting the minorities, and exactly that's what has happened. And even today, the Indian High Commissioner there, he was summoned because the backlash was observed back here in India, in Agartala. We saw what happened with the Bangladesh High Commission there, the acting High Commission there. And right now, Bangladesh's official position in this entire issue, be it the arrest of Chinmoy Das or the attack on minorities, is that it is the exaggeration of Indian media, or Indian media is trying to fan more trouble there, and they have been registering their protest with the Indian government as well. But Indian government, as you rightly pointed out, has very limited options. They have been intervening, they have been in touch with the Mr. Yunus's government there, and even today when Pranay Verma, the Indian High Commissioner, was summoned, he came out and said that there are many issues on which India and Bangladesh have interdependencies on each other, and just one issue should not stop our diplomatic talks, should not impact our relationship. But it doesn't look so that Indian government can get in and get those citizens out. Another issue is that as far as the Chinmoy Das's legal issue is concerned, as Saurabh was rightly pointing out, we'll also have to see, Gaurie, that what happens in the next 30 days before the next date of hearing comes, because will this issue only escalate further, or will both the parties, or will at least Bangladesh's government will sort of take cognizance of it and will bring the temper down on the streets of Dhaka, so that Mr. Chinmoy Das also gets a very fair trial, and Mr. Das gets to exercise his legal rights there as well.
Absolutely. Saurabh, before I let you go, I want to ask you this, that the suggestion of a peacekeeping force, as I said, is probably the strongest comment that can possibly be made. Of course, there are diplomatic issues. Of course, there are protocol level issues. But the fact is, this is a very strong and a sharp reaction coming in Bengal as well, as to how things are unfolding. Talk to us about what's the mood like in Kolkata. What is it that political class across the board are talking about what's happening in Bangladesh?
You know, the mood is somber, one of concern, given the fact that geographically, Bengal is, of course, close to Bangladesh. And that is one of the reasons why, this concern plays out very often. Now, even in 2021, these concerns were there. And this is something that affects, regular Bengalis, because a lot of people have families, have properties, or have loved ones across the border in Bangladesh. And the shared concern for their well-being is something that obviously is being voiced even. One must take into account that whether it's the Trinamool Congress, whether it's the BJP, both parties which are usually often taking diametrically opposite positions, have seemingly taken the view that there needs to be something done, because this concerns Bengalis. And one of the things that a lot of people are unhappy about, at least in West Bengal, is that, as a country, Bangladesh was built on this, language issue, that, it's a language, sort of that binds us together.
Exactly. Absolutely. It was language, it was culture, and it was traditions that really bound India and Bangladesh. Thank you so much, Saurabh Gupta and Mohammad Ghazali, for really filling us in with all the aspects of a very important story that we're going to keep coming back to. I'm going to slip into a very short break, but I'm going to talk about this in greater detail. India-Bangladesh ties, what are the options that New Delhi can do from here? And most importantly, the next 30 days till 2nd of January. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Global, and we are now focusing, and we continue to focus on what's happening in Bangladesh. And with me, joining me are two very important guests to really talk about what's happening in Bangladesh, a voice from Dhaka and a voice from London. Essentially, the two aspects, the two sides of this political debate, Muqtadir Rashid as well as Zulkarnain Saeed Khan. All right, Muqtadir Rashid, let me start with you. How things are unfolding right now in Bangladesh. The fact that Chinmoy Krishna doesn't even have legal counsel right now. Do you think rule of law is actually being followed right now? No matter the charges that may be, the fact is everybody is entitled to getting legal counsel.
Exactly the same question I asked the public prosecutor in Chittagong, and they say, look, you don't have any option to defend for an accused who is arrested in charge of sedition. So I said, why don't you bring an independent lawyer who can give the access or whatever they can do? But they say, look, we argue the lawyer and the court just to bring someone who can stand for them. But there were no lawyer because they've said the lawyer was killed in the past day, in the November, late November. So they were very much agree with this case because, you know, the situation, the lawyer, when lawyer been killed, then there would be definitely reaction from their side. The same thing
For
happened
30
with
days, he will remain, he of course continues to be in jail. Even his bail proceedings cannot happen right now. Now the next proceedings are going to take place after 1 month, 2nd of January.
No. It can be possible. It can be possible if their lawyer moved to the higher court, because it was not in the magistrate court. It was in a session court, so they can move to the higher court. And if higher court allows them bails, that would be okay for him. So, but keep in mind, it is not a simple charge. It's a sedition charge for hoisting flag.
No, you can put up any charge on anybody. That's not the point. The point is legal counsel is not being provided to an accused. That's the fact. That's the borderline. So is the rule of law being followed? Whatever may be the status right now of Bangladesh.
It is not the responsibility of the judge to bring some lawyer to say, please stand for him. He has to provide someone who will represent him, and there was none was there, so no lawyer was there. So that's the reason, and I don't think that's the lack of judicial system or injustice.
I will tell you one thing, and I'll give you an example, and I'll tell you why it's important. That if a country's judicial system, criminal system, has to pass the test of time, it has to be able to treat every accused with the same way. And the fact that a Hindu priest has not been given legal counsel right now and will not be done so for 30 more days is testimony to what the present situation is in Bangladesh. Mr. Khan, respond to that. Let me get the other view also. Yes, Mr. Khan.
Yeah, I think you have to work on the sound because the sound is not very good. I cannot hear your questions very clearly.
Okay, I think that seems to be a lot of people in Bangladesh right now, that their voices are being unheard right now by the people who are governing Bangladesh. Isn't that what's happening right now?
No, but when I was talking to your other colleague, the sound was quite here. Like, I think from your end, I can't really hear you, but if you can check it.
Okay, I'll get that check. But, Mr. Rashid, then let me ask you this, that there are now demands that are coming in that a peacekeeping force should be there in Bangladesh simply because the plight of minorities is not being listened to, adhered to by the government of the day. Respond to
I
that.
think the peacekeeping, Bangladesh should ask the UN mission to send peacekeeping troops to India to protect the minority.
No, don't bother. Minorities have grown in number since independence. Whereas in the case of Bangladesh, the minorities were 24% and they are now less than 8%. A third of minorities are left in Bangladesh. So please don't go about lecturing on minorities. My question was very simple. My question was very simple. No, Mr. Rashid, I don't like doing this because I feel that a guest should be given a chance to respond. However, my duty to my viewers is that I can't let anybody come and say anything in the name of opinion and mix bias as facts. The fact is, the population of minorities has dwindled significantly in Bangladesh in the last 50 years. This is not my fact, this is the fact of the day. From
Can I
24%, they
participate
are
now?
now less than 8%, right? So I'm just saying that, and those attacks only continue right now. The latest being that
Which attack? Which
there are
attack?
three monks who have been arrested after Chinmoy Krishna Das. Mr. Khan, are you now able to hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
So the hope and expectation is that the minorities' plight are also heard more clearly by the government of the day. Respond to that.
Okay. Before that, I will just go a little bit behind. On November 10th, the Indian Foreign Secretary Vinay Katra told a press conference in New Delhi that India respects the democratic process in Bangladesh. When it comes to developments in Bangladesh, elections in Bangladesh, it is their domestic matter. It is for the people of Bangladesh to decide their future. Katra said, describing India as a close friend and partner of Bangladesh. On 7th of January, the Indian External Affairs spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal told reporters in New Delhi that we have been very consistently saying that elections in Bangladesh is domestic affair of Bangladesh. Now, when you are saying that such things are our domestic affair, I'm just only concerned that why, if we are arresting somebody, and again, like, is he an Indian citizen, the person who has been arrested? What is his nationality? He's a Bangladeshi national, isn't it? And if we have arrested one of our citizens for sedition charges, I think it is for our judiciary to decide how we deal with it.
I agree with you there, provided the
And I'm
rule of
not
law is
finished.
followed. I agree with
No.
you, Mr. Khan. He's a
No,
Bangladeshi citizen, and
no,
he deserves,
again,
he should get,
if you go behind,
all the
on
rights.
25th of November on
He should get all the rights that a
in
Bangladeshi
Sambhag, in
citizen
Uttar
should get
Pradesh,
as per
India,
the constitution, irrespective of caste, creed, religion,
No,
or any
you are
other
not- you are not allowing me to
distinction.
talk.
Having said
You have-
that, why is a legal counsel not being provided to him? That's my only point.
have-
Of course, he's a Bangladeshi
you have-
citizen. He should be tried
No,
as far
you
as
have
whatever
asked me
the
to
law of
talk
the
on
land may
your
be.
show.
Is the
You
rule
have
of law
asked-
being followed?
You have asked me to talk on your show. I have been waiting for 20 minutes now. So you will have to allow me to speak and then you can talk. Otherwise, like, there is
Go
no
ahead.
point. So on 25th of November in 2024, 5 people were killed by the police forces in Sambhal, Uttar Pradesh. Have you seen any Bangladeshi television channel or any Bangladeshi media or Bangladeshi government hyping about it? Because it's entirely your internal affairs. All these years, like, since
You have no answers, sir.
Let
I gave
me
you time.
finish.
You have no answers.
No,
That's the
you have
point.
to let me finish.
You have no.
There
no,
are
you have
lots
nothing
of
to say.
answers. If we
As I
talk-
said,
if
I
we
will
talk,
allow
you will be
every
ashamed.
guest uninterrupted
If you
time,
let us talk, you
provided
guys
they
will be
speak
ashamed, because since
facts
2008
and not mix their
till
bias
2024
masquerading
in
as
Bangladesh,
facts.
there were no
sir.
elections,
My
nothing.
question
In
was very
India had
simple.
no headache that
Chinmoy
time
Krishna Das
because
is
we were-
lodged in a
because India were
Bangladeshi
allowed
jail.
to come and
His bail
plunder
proceedings
Bangladeshi
are not
resources and
happening because a
everything
legal counsel
without
is
any
not
kind
being
of
provided to.
accountability.
I
Now,
asked
there is
you
a new
this
government
as
for
a
the last 3
Bangladeshi
months,
citizen, and
it
as per
has
the
really
constitution,
created such a
is
big
he being
panic
given the
amongst you
same
guys
treatment
that what
that
is
any
happening
other
in India?
Bangladeshi citizen,
Someone-
irrespective
someone
of caste,
someone
creed,
have defended the flag
and
of Bangladesh.
religion would
Someone
have been
is
provided?
booked
You
under
have
the
not
sedition
answered that,
charges.
sir. Talking over
You
each
have
other is
totally
not going to
lost
solve the
your
problem,
sleep
sir.
over
I've got to let
that.
this
So
stop.
let us
Talking
deal with
over
that.
each other is not going to stop this. My question remains the same. Unfortunately, no answers. No answers to the people of Bangladesh, no answers to the minorities of Bangladesh, no answers to the ISKCON organization that have been asking this again and again. All right. On that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back with lots more stories. Stay with us. India Global will continue to keep a close watch on all that's happening and that matters to the global Indian. Welcome back. You're watching India Global. We now turn our attention to a very important story in terms of the latest in the India-China relations. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar today said that bilateral relations between India and China were on course with some improvement after the successful disengagement along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. The minister's remarks comes nearly 2 months after India and China announced the major border breakthrough to resume patrolling along the LAC, effectively ending the long-standing standoff between the two Himalayan neighbors that erupted after the 2020 Galwan Valley clash. Before we move any further, listen in to what the minister had to say.
The House is aware that our ties have been abnormal since 2020. when peace and tranquility in the border areas were disturbed as a result of Chinese actions. India and China have held talks for multiple decades to resolve the boundary issue. While there is a line of actual control, LAC, it does not have a common understanding in some areas. We remain committed to engaging with China through bilateral discussions to arrive at a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable framework for a boundary settlement.
All right, let's get in my colleague Vishnu Shom to fill us in with the latest as far as this. Vishnu, very important remarks and commentary coming in from the minister and sets the stage in terms of the next phase of India-China relations, doesn't it?
Well, I think these are particularly cautious remarks by the Foreign Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, and perhaps given what we've seen over the last several years and the sense of distrust which has prevailed on both sides, the statement made in Parliament perhaps reflects some of that recent past. For example, the Minister said that ties are in the direction of some improvement. He's underplayed the development, as it were. He says that the development of ties is contingent on the principle of mutual sensitivity, going back to what India's time-tested position on China has always been. He did, however, add that disengagement has now been achieved in full in eastern Ladakh, but he also, in the same breath, said that China continues to illegally occupy territory in Aksai Chin. The Shaksgam Valley, which is area illegally occupied by Pakistan, was ceded by Pakistan to China as well, and Beijing continues to occupy that. He did point out that there is no common understanding on the lay of the line of actual control. However, there have been elaborate shared efforts to ensure peace and tranquility, but that neither side should unilaterally alter the status quo. Agreements reached in the past must be fully abided by, and that the disengagement took place after dozens of rounds of talks at various levels. So it's a very, very carefully balanced statement where he upholds India's principles, says that long-standing agreements need to be followed, that China cannot unilaterally change the status of the line of actual control. But yes, disengagement has been completed, at least in this round, in Depsang and Demchok in Ladakh. All right,
Vishnu, I appreciate you taking out the time to really decode that for us. Now, shifting focus to the simmering West Asia conflict, where rumblings of a new possible Gaza ceasefire are now gaining momentum. Hamas and the Palestinian Authority's Fatah party have reportedly agreed to create a committee to jointly administer post-war Gaza. Negotiators from both sides held conversation and talks as part of the ongoing Cairo negotiations. This so-called committee would reportedly comprise about 10 or 15 non-partisan figures, and they would have authority on matters related to the economy, education, health, humanitarian aid, and as well as reconstruction of Gaza, as per a draft of the proposal that's been seen by several reports. But the plan is yet to be approved by Mahmoud Abbas, who is the president of the Palestinian Authority. Most importantly, it remains to be seen if Israel agrees to this deal being formalized. Tel Aviv has reiterated its stance on the matter at several occasions in the past, and it has rejected any role for Hamas in Gaza after the war, and has also said it does not trust Abbas's Palestinian Authority to run the enclave. Meanwhile, Israel's defense minister has threatened that if the ceasefire in Lebanon collapses, then Israel's forces will no longer differentiate between Lebanon and Hezbollah. Some very strong commentary coming in from Israel. All right, in fact, staying with West Asia and the possibility of a Gaza ceasefire, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has come out with very strong commentary on social media. He's issued a very stinging warning to a Hamas terrorist. He has warned that terrorists of suffering massive repercussions. They may suffer massive repercussions if Israeli hostages are not released by the time he takes office. Now, he takes office on the 20th of January. He's effectively giving Hamas time till about 6 weeks to ensure that about 101 of the hostages that are with Gaza, with the Hamas right now, are released. This threat comes after exhaustive diplomacy by outgoing President Joe Biden has failed to secure a deal to free the hostages that were taken on about 14 months back on the 7th of October. And Trump was not sparring any quarter. And in fact, what he said on his platform, he said that if hostages are not released prior to 20th of June, the date that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in broad caps in the Middle East. Trump has vowed staunch support for Israel on several occasions in the past, and he has also spoken of his desire to secure deals on the world stage. All right, let's quickly tell our viewers what are the kind of plans that Donald Trump has in place when he comes to office. Now, he has a big plan that where he says that, and how is he going to put the world in order? He said that he's not going to start wars. In fact, he will stop wars. Now, there are several wars that are taking place. One is, of course, what's happening in West Asia, which is also now there's a Syria war going on, and then there is the ongoing Israel conflict. Then there is the Ukraine war as well. Let's go ahead. It says that he wants, some of these commentary that Trump has made is that he pledges to end Ukraine war on day one. How will he do that? Is the key question. Then he said that he's vowed that hell to pay for Hamas unless hostages are freed, something that he said almost about 12 hours back. He said that he's told Israel PM to end the war before Trump's second presidency begins. And he's called Taiwan. Remember, that's another very important area, could be a possible flashpoint there in Asia. He's called Taiwan a tough situation, demand it pay US for defending its sovereignty. So that's, of course, what some of the very important commentary that's coming from Donald Trump ahead of his taking office. Let's now quickly get in Professor Andrew Latham, who's joining me. He's a professor of political science. He's joining me live as well. We have, all right, we have Mr. Zakir Hussain, who is the former research fellow of ICWA. All right, Professor Andrew, let me start with you. Some very sharp comments coming in from Donald Trump. He's pretty much setting the stage for how he views this conflict and how he plans to end this when he comes to power on 20th of January.
Well, his views in terms of geopolitics more broadly, but especially in the region, are a little bit contradictory. On the one hand, it's an assertion of American power. I, as the President of the United States, am going to solve all of this. And on the other hand, he is very much of the view, reflexively, that the United States should get out of its forever wars and should not start any more and should withdraw from many regions of the world. I believe he is, as you pointed out in your opening, committed to ending wars, not starting wars. And as we know, he's a businessman. He's very transactional, and his reflexes and impulses are to get the parties to sit down and agree. But he's also a firm believer in, if I'm at the table and I'm the stronger party, I should be able to force you to do pretty much what I want you to do. And when it comes to Hamas and Gaza, it's pretty clear what he wants. A release of the hostages, some kind of deal, maybe analogous to the deal that Israel struck with Hezbollah in the north, that will end the fighting, if not resolve the underlying conflicts. And then he can walk away and puff himself up and say,
hostages,
yep.
Those 100 hostages is the leverage that Hamas has. And no amount of diplomacy that Biden has been doing has been able to ensure any of that hostage, being freed. So what is it that Trump's game plan could be here?
Well, this is why I say it's contradictory. On the one hand, I really don't see it. That is the only leverage that Hamas has left. Iran is off the table. They're busy in Syria. Hezbollah is taking itself out of the game, despite its promises that it never would until Israel gave in to Hamas. Hamas has supporters all over the Western world, but none that matter. So the hostages are the only leverage they have. And so for Trump, the transactional Trump, sitting down and saying, okay, what do you want in return for these hostages? But then he has to look over his shoulder and say to Benjamin Netanyahu, what are you going to accept? And then he has to look over the other shoulder and say to various factions in the United States, what are you going to accept? So to say that this is Trump caught between a rock and a hard place is to understate his political predicament. Let's see if he can bulldoze his way through. He has before.
Okay, then let me get the other guest as well, the other voice, Dr. Hussain, which is that what could essentially be Trump's game plan here? How can he undercut Hamas right now, which has the leverage of those 100 hostages?
I don't think that Trump has any leverage except increasing the pressure, and for that Hamas is ready. Whether Iran is going to support or whether Hezbollah is going not to support, it does not matter, because Hamas started this war on its own. And if Trump continues with his wording as he did in his previous term with Afghanistan, he threw mother of all bomb on Afghanistan. Later on, he is come to Taliban and made deal. The same thing I feel here too. Initially, Trump will put extreme pressure. When he will not be able to materialize, then he will set and settle the issue. And perhaps I feel that a small, not very big, a small Palestinian state is in the making, which President Biden is also talking in the background, while Netanyahu is not ready, because we all know that neither Iran nor Hezbollah directly supported Hamas. Hamas is its own inbuilt capacity. It is ready to die, and it is ready to not to accept the Trump pressure. This is what I feel. And the situation is going to be very complicated in the region, because Turkey has entered in
complicated.
Syria.
The situation is fairly complicated. But the reason why Donald Trump has come out with that message on social media is really setting the stage and setting the tone for a presidency where he really wants to address these wars on day one, because it's also a legacy defining a term for him, Professor Andrew, because, you know, he wants to be seen as someone who addresses the ongoing conflicts that his predecessor, which is the current president, would not or could not resolve during his term.
I think that's right. He does want, he's a lame duck. This is it. He can't run again after this 4-year term. And he needs to be mindful of his legacy, and I think he very much is. And what would that legacy be? But it's twofold, and the two wings of this are not easily reconciled. On the one hand, he wants to be known as the peacemaker, whether it's in the Indo-Pacific or Southwest Asia or Ukraine. He wants to be the peacemaker. On the other hand, he wants to be seen as a tough guy and as a kind of avatar of the United States as a tough guy on the world stage. And, you know, those two things aren't always easy to reconcile. I think he might have some success in Ukraine. I think he might have some success maybe with China around Taiwan. I'm very doubtful that he's going to be able to bring Hamas to get the kind of peace deal he wants in Gaza. I just don't see that, because he doesn't want a Palestinian state, I don't think. Maybe in the West Bank, but not so much in Gaza, because he's also buddies with Prime Minister Netanyahu and shares some of his worldview as well. And so he really wants those hostages back. What American president wouldn't? Because I think 4 or 5 of them are Americans, and maybe that's the only 4 or 5 that they really care about. But how does he make that happen?
Yes.
And
absolutely. I guess what's happening in Syria is probably going to be some solace for President Trump, given that it weakens Russia, it weakens Iran. But how much of that could really play out in another theater in West Asia is really the key question. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out the time to really decode a very complex situation in West Asia. And I'm going to slip into a very short break and come back and talk more on the other side of the other big war that we spoke about, which is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Global with me, Gaurie Dwivedi. We now turn our focus to the other big war that's happening around the world. That is the Russia-Ukraine conflict that continues unabated. Russian forces are continuing their offensive operations against Ukrainian troops from the eastern flank. On the other hand, Ukraine has also claimed having inflicted losses on Russian troops over the past 24 hours. According to Defense Ministry, Russian forces repelled several Ukrainian attacks and launched offensives in Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine, Donetsk in eastern Ukraine, as well as several other parts of southeastern Ukraine, and Kherson in the southern area of the Ukrainian country. All right, and not only this, Russian air defense forces reportedly shot down 69 Ukrainian drones and a US-made HIMARS rocket. Ukraine has reported 120 clashes along the front line and more than 40 attacks in the country's east. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Brussels and scheduled to meet with NATO foreign ministers. Blinken's visit comes on the verge on the US State Department announcing that Washington is preparing to send Ukraine an additional $725 million in military assistance to take on the Russian forces. All right, shifting focus now to Canada, where the crackdown on asylum seekers has begun. In fact, Canada is launching a new online ad campaign cautioning asylum seekers that making an immigration claim is quote-unquote not easy. Canada's Ministry of Immigration has confirmed the campaign will launch early next year and run through March. As per Ministry, it's meant to equip people early in their asylum journey with real facts. By mid-January, those searching the web with certain immigration inquiries will be met with sponsored content titled Canada's Asylum Facts. Ottawa's Immigration Ministry has further said that the campaign will target all searches relating to claiming asylum in Canada. The ads expected to reach global audience will be translated in 11 different countries to ensure that all have access to that data. In total, the Liberals have spent about $250,000 on this project. Interestingly, it's about a third of the total amount spent on annual advertising geared towards immigration in the last 6 years. All right, let's get in Terry Mileski to really decode this for us. He's a senior correspondent of CBC. Thank you so much, Terry, for taking out the time, speaking to me. Now, this is something beyond the fact that, it details all that's happening for the immigration ministry. This, in some sense, curtails the flood of asylum seekers from parts of India, particularly parts of Punjab, and which are fanning the separatist movement in Canada, something that New Delhi has been warning and talking to Canada about again and again. So to that extent, it's a huge positive.
Well, it's certainly intended to cut back on those asylum seekers flooding here, as you say, in great numbers from Punjab as well as a lot of other places in the world. But Punjab certainly sticks out, doesn't it? I mean, what this is telling us is that the government is trying to slam on the brakes on a runaway train. This train is running so fast that we have actually doubled. If you look at the figures, we have more than doubled the number of asylum seekers who are trying to come to Canada and get asylum here. From 2019 to 23, it went up 125%. I mean, that, even by the immigration minister's account, is out of control. And pending now more than 250,000 applications for asylum in Canada. And each one, if you applied now for asylum in Canada, let's be clear, it's going to take 44 months in order to process your application. So by that time, you're probably already living here. You've set up a whole new life. You got a whole new name. There are probably 500,000 at least people living illegally in Canada. In other words, we have a system that's out of control. The government is trying to slam on the brakes, and whether it will make a difference that when they search for how do I get asylum in Canada,
exactly,
there's an ad that pops up and says, don't try it, it's too hard. Well, I don't know if that's going to work.
But Terry, this is not about Canada's struggles with dealing with asylum seekers more than what it can manage. This is also about New Delhi's repeated demands to Canada that when you give asylum to people from India, do a background check. Do not make it an open gateway to allow all separatists, those with separatist tendencies, to create bases in Canada, something that India has said repeatedly. So that is something that's important in this for us. And that's our key takeaway.
You're not wrong about that. I mean, it's certainly true that Canada has been beaten about the head by India for many years. And suddenly it seems to have had an effect. I suppose that the row between the diplomatic meltdown between Canada and India has a lot to do with this. Remember also that it takes two. There's another side to this. There's the Indian side. I mean, you may have seen, for example, the interview with Simranjit Singh Mann, as you know, the separatist leader in Punjab, saying that he financed his party by selling letters to people who wanted to make asylum claims, bogus or not. He didn't care because he's making great money, enough to finance his party, about $400 in US dollars each time he gives them a letter to say, well, this person is a persecuted member of my party. As a separatist, if you send him back to India, he'll be thrown in jail and tortured. And that'll be $400, please. A minimum 35,000 rupees. And some people say 100,000. So there is a push as well as a pull. And you're right that the Indian government has been certainly trying to get Canada to crack down on this. And there has been a serious problem in Canada with setting up processes that don't seem to be enforced. Look at this case that started this row with India and Canada.
Exactly. And with the whole row presently at a diplomatic standoff between India and Canada, this positive movement, do you think, even if it's a small step forward, it could create some sort of positive environment for the two countries to probably look at reaching some sort of a positive middle ground?
Well, New Delhi would be crazy if they wouldn't see this as a positive step forward. There's no doubt about that. But the question, what the devil is always in the details. And the details are, okay, let's say you introduce a new policy that's really, really strict on paper, and you announce it with great fanfare, and then you don't enforce those rules. Look at the case of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. His murder in September of last year was what started this whole row between Canada and India. How did he get into Canada, by the way? Oh, well, he arrived under a false passport. What was his name? Ravi Sharma or something. And the immigration officer said, oh, come on, that's a forgery. Off you go. Out. Threw him out. He comes back. This time, he's suddenly got a new Canadian Sikh wife. And he says, oh, okay, here's my application.
Yes.
And they say, no, that's a marriage of convenience. Sorry, out you go.
Yes.
Decline. Okay, so he's had two chances. And then suddenly, somehow, and nobody knows how,
exactly.
he's got Canadian citizenship.
Exactly.
And the Minister of Immigration doesn't know how he got it.
Exactly.
Or when. He changes his story. So
exactly.
It's a bit of a mess.
Absolutely, Terry. Thank you so much for speaking to me. And as you said, devil lies in the detail, and executing what may be good intent ahead of an election season, given the global challenges that Trudeau may also face. But devil lies in being able to execute that. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to me on India Global. On that note, shifting focus to the other very important story coming in from, Bollywood actor Nargis Fakhri's sister, Alia Fakhri, has been arrested in New York for allegedly murdering her ex-boyfriend and his friend. As per reports, Alia allegedly set fire to a two-story garage in a fit of jealousy, trapping her former boyfriend, Edward Jacob, and his friend inside, which resulted in their death. Alia reportedly arrived at the property around 6:20 a.m., shouting, "You are all going to die today." Before setting the building ablaze, Jacob and his friend died from smoke inhalation and thermal injuries. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Global. Thanks so much for watching.